So as we all know, the issues related with research and plagiarism have been in vogue and a matter of great concern. There have been many issues which have been really helping the students, the research scholars, and different other kind of professionals who have been associated with the research. So this concept of research ethics is very much feasible, applicable, and influential so that the scholars can understand what kind of problems may arise, what kind of other people's issues or rights, their scholarly rights are associated. So I would like to mention here one famous definition by Brian Martin given in 1992. This is very much related with the concept of research ethics and to understand about what kind of fairness is required for the authors and different other scholars so that they can understand what kind of responsibility is really accounted on the part of researchers for conducting the independent work and definitely respecting for ownership rights which are associated with other scholars, their contributions in the research. So this concern for research ethics is very much applicable in the context to understand where is the moral science very much applicable while any researcher goes for research activity, their publications or anything, what kind of mechanisms, procedures they are using in their research process. They should be able to understand how to respect other researchers' rights, ownership problems, and anything which may really land them into any kind of trouble. So, what kind of planning or initiation should be on the part of researcher? So, I have quoted here three definitions from different authors from different fields. So let us begin with the concept of original authorship and the moral and economic implications, which was given by Stuart Hannibus 20 years ago. But even today, in this current scenario, the, these kind of issues, these kind of concepts are very much applicable in the research scenario. So this concept of original authorship is bringing that kind of light for the authors, for the researchers, that what kind of originality, what kind of research ideas they are sharing, they are bringing in the research panorama, and what kind of different ethical principles are related, and how whatever kind of fundings or research grants or any kind of research productions are associated. So these economic implications are also taken into account. So while beginning with the research, there should be a clear planning and adoption of systematic research. Why it is required? Because systematic approaches really help in understanding and planning what kind of problems might be there, what are the things, what kind of funding or research amenities are there, what kind of infrastructure is available on the part of researcher. And in this context, the technology enhanced learning is very much influential because it provides certain guidelines, certain platforms, certain support system as well to understand how the technological aspects may be useful while going for the learning and research components. So while discussing about several ethical standards, there should be some responsibility in the minds of researchers and they should be understanding what kind of pros and cons are related in their research work. So before initiating the research, they should be understanding what are certain guidelines given by the funding agencies, what kind of certain procedures, acts, and regulations are existing in which organization they are conducting the research, and whatever team they are working with or they are conducting the research work individually, there is no chance for any kind of deceiving activity on the people who are participating in the research or harming or causing any problem to the people or animals who are involved in the research process. Apart from the human beings or animals, if they are involved in the research, being researchers, fellow team members, or the subjects or the participants in the research, It is the responsibility of the researcher to care and respect and maintain the property or infrastructure facility which are available from the organization. And to begin with any kind of research, definitely everybody should be aware of those kind of informed consent which are to be held in the research work. If they are involving any animals or human beings, they should be having proper consent as written documents, some kind of contract or some other designing may take place. Also, they have to respect the privacy and confidentiality of the fellow participants, as well as they have to follow certain precautions when they are using human beings or animals in the research. And when we talk about the finances or funding involved with the researchers, apart from getting it funded from any authority or organization, there should be no chance for having any wrong practices like announcing big rewards, or there should be enforcement of any binding contracts for the research work, or in any case there is no room for plagiarizing the work of others, which may be related with the conclusions which they are drawing from the research. It may be affected by the research grant or funding they have received. Even if it is commercial in nature, then they should be more cautious in these kind of drawing the conclusion or finding their research results. Also, they should be able to understand that by any means they are not committing any scientific fraud or falsifying research or conducting any thing which may amount as scientific misconduct. Also, when it is about the publishing, then they should be understanding what kind of peer reviewing process is, and they should be respecting all these kind of activities which are related with the ethical standards in the research. So let's move to plagiarism and how it is significant to understand the plagiarism, how it happens. So before knowing the process of plagiarism accidentally or unknowingly, whenever it happens or somebody does it deliberately knowingly, then the definition of plagiarism, which is very much here from two sources, like it is considered as the unauthorized use of the language and thoughts of another author and the representation of them as one's own. So, this very simple definition really informs about the basic concept of plagiarism, that it is related with the unauthorized use of the language and thoughts which are really the intellectual property of some other person, but somebody else is representing those language and thoughts as if they are one's own. So, this kind of activity and process is really considered as plagiarism. We can see here various efforts by UGC. One UGC letter which was given in 2017, which is related with the draft for plagiarism detection and avoidance. It is very much here. We can see here it was issued on 1st September 2017, almost more than 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And it is very much here to show what kind of efforts are being done by Government of India as well as UGC at national level. So in all these broader contexts, we can see various efforts in year 2017, in this year 2018, as this UGC notification was issued in UGC 2018. This another letter which was issued again in 2018, which is related with the approval of promotion of academic integrity and prevention of plagiarism in higher education institutions. This is one regulation from 2018. So why these kind of regulations, these drafts are very much important, because these kind of processes from UGC and of India are really motivating for creation of those kind of platforms and environments in which the research scholars and everybody who's somehow related or associated with the research activities, they should be aware of such malpractices and how to avoid them, what kind of tools are available. So how it is possible, these drafts, these regulations have given the opportunity for providing some awareness through different programs and training sessions. So these programs, these sessions are very much about to instruct the academic community at different level about proper attribution, then finding permission for the author wherever it is necessary, and all these should be in accordance with certain rules which have been laid by UGC. Then whatever international conventions practices are there, they should be followed. We can see in the case of different journals, international platforms, what kind of regulations are there, and finally regulations relating to governing the source. So about all these concepts and components which may be related with the research publications, writing of thesis and research submissions, all these kind of components have been covered into these awareness programs and training sessions which are being conducted at local, regional, and national levels by different universities, colleges, and different other higher education institutes. So, only the awareness is not the minimum thing for the higher education institutions. There have been some provisions for understanding what are the responsibilities of higher education institutions, which really include the cardinal principles of academic integrity in the curricula. So, regarding the responsibilities of higher education institution, these are very much about to understand how these academic integrity principles can be really involved with the curriculum of UG and PG programs, master degrees. Also, as a component of compulsory coursework or some module can be designed. So, these should be including certain elements of responsible conduct which are related with the research and publication ethics in the form of some compulsory coursework or module for PG and research scholars. Also, whatever kind of orientation and refresher courses are being organized at different levels for faculty and other professionals in higher education institutions in different subjects as well, there should be certain provisions for inclusion of these kind of awareness programs which really help the professionals, the faculty members to understand the issues related with plagiarism, research originality, research ethics, publication ethics, all these kind of things, and what kind of tools are available to avoid some these kind of problems in academic publishing. So, how this is possible? They have to establish academic facility in these higher education institutions which should be equipped with different technologies for detection of plagiarism. So without having certain infrastructure, this is not possible. So most of the higher education institutions have been establishing certain kind of labs or some association with the libraries for detecting the plagiarism issues in the research publications. And how this curbing of plagiarism is possible, because they have to declare and implement the technology based mechanism with the use of software. We know so many software related to plagiarism detection and improving the writing as well, and these softwares are being used for detection of plagiarism in theses, MPhil dissertations, or any other publications which are related with the research. So how this is possible? This is possible with the application of tool, and the aim of these tools and software is to make the understanding at which the researcher or any other professional understands that the document should be free of plagiarism at the time of their submission. Also, higher education institutions, they have to develop a policy on plagiarism, and it should be approved by certain relevant statutory bodies and authorities in those institutions. Also, they have to submit to Inflinet soft copies of dissertations and theses within a month after the award of degree for hosting those files in the digital repository at Inflinet under the Shodh Ganga e-repository. So this is mandatory and most of the universities are following this particular practice. Also, there is a suggestion and provision for creation of institutional repository on institution website where those dissertations, theses or papers and any other kind of in-house publications can be stored, archived and made available for in-house or internet level use. But while we go for plagiarism detection tool or software, whatever we can call it, so there are certain exclusion from the similarity checks. What kind of these checks are? They are like exclusion of all quoted work which is reproduced with all necessary permission or attribution. So whatever quoted work is in the thesis or chapter, it is excluded. Also, all references, bibliographies, table of content, preface, and acknowledgements, which we call basically preliminary pages, along with the bibliography and references, they are excluded. And all kind of generic terms, laws, which are standard in nature, which are universal in nature, including standard symbols and equations, they are excluded. So, what is the aim here? It is assumed that the research work should be the outcome of original ideas and processes taken by a researcher, and it should be including abstract, summary, hypotheses, observations, results, conclusions, and recommendations only. So, and they should not have any similarities. And apart from this, it shall exclude the common knowledge or any coincidental terms which may amount up to 14 consecutive words. So these kind of exclusions are available in the plagiarism detection step. And how it is possible, apart from, if in case of any problem or any issue, if it may arise, so there is constitution of departmental academic integrity panel. So this all the departments in any higher education institution, they shall notify this integrity panel, and the composition of this DAIP will be as there will be one chairman, two members. So chairman will be the head of the department, and there will be two members, one person who is well versed with anti-plagiarism tools and who will be nominated by head of the department. Also another member, one senior academician from outside the department, but to be nominated by the head of the higher education institution. Also, it is the basic idea that this any activity which is related with the research, they should be allowing, they should be permitting the bringing of originality in research and function on the principles of natural justice. So in case of any problem arises, there should be provision to assess the levels of plagiarism, and whatever penalties have been recommended, the punishments which have been decided, they should be accordingly, and they should submit the report with the penalties which are to be imposed. So these kind of activities are to be done by the DIAP. There is another this institution level academic integrity panel which we call IAP. So this is composed as one pro VC or senior academician or dean of the institute also, with three members, one senior academician, one member outside that organization, and one person who is well versed with the anti-plagiarism tools, to be nominated by the head of the institution. And this particular panel will consider the recommendations which have been given by the departmental level academic integrity panel. And this panel will also function on the basis of natural justice. So what kind of penalties are given in case of any plagiarism is found? In case of submission of thesis and dissertations, there are four labels as given here: level 0, level 1, level 2, and 3. So this particular 0 label is about when similarities are found up to 10%, means there are minor similarities, so there is no penalty. But in the level 1, we can see if similarities are there from 10 to 40%. So any such researcher will be asked to submit a revised file, revised script, whichever the time has been given, but not exceeding 6 months to the researcher. Also, the level 2, which is about similarities found in between 40 to 60%. So this kind of student, this kind of researcher will be debarred from submitting a revised script for a period of 1 year. So in that 1 year period, the person is assumed to revise the script. And there is one level 3, which is related with the similarities found more than 60%. So such kind of situation brings the cancellation of student registration from the program. So these four kind of penalties are there, which are categorized as level O, 1, 2 and 3. Then there are some other kind of academic and research publications than the thesis or dissertation submission. So in these kind of research publications, there are again same four labels, and the categories are same like 10%, 10 to 40%, then 40 to 60%, and finally above 60%. So up to 10%, when there are minor similarities, there is provision of no penalty. But when it is in between 10 to 40%, the submitter has to withdraw the manuscript. Also, when the similarities are above 40 to 60%, then not only the withdrawal of manuscript will take place, but also in such case there will be denial of one annual increment, and they will not be allowed to supervise any new master's or MPhil or PhD scholar for a period of 2 years. This is related with the faculties. Also, if the similarities are above 60%, then they have to withdraw the manuscript. There will be denial of right to two successive annual increments, and they cannot supervise any new master, MPhil or PhD scholars for a period of 3 years. So this is another example which happened 2 years ago almost, in August 2019. This is the announcement of uh, plagiarism detection software PDS to all universities, institutions, including private universities, free of cost. Which software it is? It is Urkund software. So this is meant for all the universities and higher education institution in India. Plagiarism detection software Urkund. So when we talk about plagiarism in particular, so all these issues were related with what kind of penalties are there and what are different efforts of UGC and government of India in Indian higher education system. But let's get back to plagiarism and how it is related with the ethics and it really happens. So whenever the researchers are planning about their research, so at the level of planning and conducting, they should be aware of what are ethical principles related with the research, and when they are evaluating and estimating what are potential cost and benefits are there. So all these four steps somehow interrelated with the ethics and research in picture. So whenever there are doubts in the mind of researcher or student or anyone who is conducting research or writing some scholarly article or some chapter, anything, so it is somehow like how much they can copy, or somehow if they are copying, so changing or modifying the words will be some smart idea, or how they can do, is it really required that citation is very much compulsory. So what kind of these doubts in the mind of students which are very much relevant to understand, so that the plagiarism problem can be avoided. Otherwise, keeping the doubts in mind and not following the proper steps to avoid plagiarism really may land in the trouble area. So, what are different methods which students can use to avoid plagiarism? Definitely, citing is at the top to avoid any kind of theft. Then, paraphrasing, then quoting, how the quoted information is put in the text, then citing code, citing own material, because copying from own papers or using the earlier published material from the same author means own is not allowed, and referencing and modifications, these are certain steps which any scholar should be knowing and following, practicing in their research publications. So, what is acceptable in quotation and paraphrasing? Definitely, there should be recording of information which was given in the original passage, and it should be done accurately. There is no chance or escaping way for modifying the quoted information. Also, once the information is given in double quotes, means quotation, it should be supported by the citation, proper in-text citation. So it is about the giving credit for the ideas in the passage. So why it is important? Because it really indicates that which text, which part or which sentence or combination of sentences have been taken from some other source. So these sources are kept there as citation, and the copied information which is as it is copied accurately, so that will be put under the double inverted commas, and it will be given as the quotation mark and with proper citation. What is a yardstick there? If there are more than three words, definitely the software will catch most probably, and it will be considered as plagiarism. So if some researcher really forgets to use quotation mark, so it will be considered that they have copied the exact language from a source which is found as plagiarism. And even if the reference is given, but it will be considered as plagiarized information. So putting double quotation mark and the support of proper in-text citation is must for quotation kind of text. Why this giving credit is important? Because we really respect another researcher's idea, opinion, or theory. Whenever any researcher they are taking some inspiration or copying as it is idea, opinion, or theory, then they should give proper credit, means reference and in-text citation. Whenever any researcher is using facts or statistics, any kind of graphs or visuals or drawings, any kind of information which may not amount as common knowledge, they should be supporting with the reference. Whenever there are quotations, it may be actual spoken words or written words, they should be given as double inverted commas with the support of in-text citation. And whenever the paraphrasing takes place, even then modification of words demands the real source of information from where that idea was copied or it was inspired. So what needs to be cited? Any kind of published or unpublished information, irrespective of their formats. It may be print or non-print, electronic in nature, may be available on intranet or internet, or it may be quoted or paraphrased or summarized. So all kind of information which is given or produced by someone else, it should be properly cited. So citing really provides authority to work. It means the researcher has been consulting qualitative published literature. Also, it shows what kind of developments have taken place in a field of research, while enabling different readers to find the sources of information associated or referenced in the text. What are different conditions when citations are very much important? Whenever any author who is sharing distinctive ideas and structure, any information or data which has been taken from a particular source, any verbatim phrase or passage means quoted information, or if it does not amount as common knowledge. So in all these four conditions, citing of information is very much important and mandatory. So how the source of information can be used effectively? Because any researcher should be knowing what are their own ideas, what are the ideas or text which have been borrowed. And for own ideas, citation is not important, but ideas which have been borrowed in the shape of copied text, it should be supported by proper reference. And when the researcher, those who are discussing some paragraphs, they are logically structuring their paragraphs, their chapters, or anything. So it is important to reflect what are the ideas of researcher and how further references or sources are really adding to the thoughts, to the logic of researcher. Also, the significance of paper should be on the very thought which the researcher wants to convey, other than what kind of material is present and how it is being pasted or really being copied in the matter. So what is more important here? Knowing own ideas and supporting those ideas by the published literature, by giving proper references, citations, etc. So acknowledging for idea is very much important in two conditions. There are two conditions like why and when. Why it is important? Whenever a researcher is using or mentioning some specific method or theory, then the source of that method, that theory should be provided with the citation. Also, whenever they are using some arrangement of material, then acknowledgement of idea means support of proper reference is very much important there. And what are two conditions when it is required? Whenever they are mentioning some list of steps in a particular process, so those list of steps are to be supported by citation. And what kind of characteristics, if they are describing, defining, or exploring, suppose it is a medical research or some psychological experiment, even then the acknowledgement for idea is important. So whenever such kind of situations arrive, using of specific method or arranging material or any process or characteristics in the research, there should be provisions of proper and complete citations. But there can be some areas, some factors where there is no need for citation, like if it is a common knowledge, maybe it is known to a lot of people, or there can be some deciding factors like whatever was existing in the mind of researcher. If it has originated in the mind of researcher, then there is no need of citing. But when those originated thoughts, when they are put in black and white and they are being supported by some other researchers, so those other researches are to be properly cited. These are certain exceptions which are mentioned here, that what does not need to be cited, like some common sense observations, some folklore, urban legends, or which are the historical events very known in nature. Also, author's own experiences, insights, creations, and musings. Whatever has been created by author, like originated videos, presentations, music, or some other media, these are also excluded from citations. Also, any scientific evidences which have been collected after experimenting, own polls, or designed own test, then there is no need of external citation. But it is always suggested for the scholars, whenever they are in doubt, they should be citing sources, because it shows what kind of own ideas are presented by the authors, which are related with the development of a certain direction in the subject areas, and how some other ideas are adding in the text or chapter. Also, these kind of citations really support the own ideas of author which have been given in the paragraphs. And it is a responsibility of researcher to clearly state, indicate, like who said what. Who said what means here who is the main author, who is the original author or the researcher, and there may be some other whose means borrowed information, inspired information, or copied information, or quoted material. So whosoever is really contributing in completing one paragraph, whether original ideas of the researcher or supported information of the researcher, it should be clear in the text with the help of citations. So no vagueness or no ambiguity is allowed, otherwise there will be inadvertent plagiarism. So it will be considered that the copied material is also something as the part of author's own ideas. But there are some issues which may be confused with the copyright problems. So what we understand as a general rule, facts cannot be copyrighted. But the words which have been used for expression, they are copyrighted. So any expressions or words which have been used in any text, they are original or unique. The rule which is related with the changing of passage, it should be in the author's own words. Otherwise, it will be considered as copyrighted material and the author can be landing in the troubled areas of plagiarism and copyright. So it is important to understand what are the plagiarism issues and copyright issues. Plagiarism is related with the violation of academic norms and it is an offense against the author. While copyright violation is illegal and it is an offense against the copyright holder. And plagiarism happens when ideas are copied. But copyright violation occurs when any specific fixed expression, that is sequence of words, is copied. So there is difference in plagiarism and copyright. Copyright is related with the uh, copying of as it is words or paragraphs, while plagiarism is related when we do not acknowledge the idea which was hidden in those paragraphs. So what are common errors which students or any scholars may commit related with the copyright and plagiarism? Because what happens, technology is very much helpful for everyone. So whatever technologically is possible, for example, if it can be done, it's okay. So it relates with the copyright infringement. And sometimes what happen, like transfer of music files through different other platforms, that is one example of copyright infringement. And when it is open access or open source, so certain kind of permissions are given there. So what happens, one kind of permission is considered as some other kind of permission as well. So that kind of confusion really creates problem, because confusing copyright with plagiarism or confusing plagiarism with copyright is really a wrong idea. So one kind of formation, one kind of activity is not about giving the total permission. So whatever is permitted, only that should be done, only that kind of activity should be done. Otherwise it will be landing into the areas of copyright issues. While professional and academic writings are there, there should be development of student skills, as they should be knowing what kind of use of language from a particular source required to be quoted, and it should be supported by the citation. Also, whenever they are using ideas or information which may not be common knowledge, so it also requires citing. So any kind of use of language from a particular source or borrowing any idea or information which may not be common in nature requires proper citation. And there is another condition, when the authors, those who are not inventor, they have not devised any pattern, any method, anything, they also should be following the rule of citation. Whenever we talk about international students, definitely they should be understanding, learning, and following the organizational directions and directives. Also, they can keep in touch with libraries and librarians, because all these help in understanding the citation styles, what kind of different formats, what kind of bibliographical skills they should be requiring. So all these components are very much required for understanding the particular nation's higher education system, their regulations, their different formalities which are important. So, what kind of stages of research process are there? While beginning with the research, definitely the exploration of the options for a particular topic, then formulating the research question, and learning to evaluate different online sources which are to be used in future for the research work. Finally, collecting the sources and preparing notes, then creation of annotated bibliography, formulating the thesis statement. So all these steps are related with the organization of ideas and creation of an outline. Then drafting the paper, revision, edits, and checking for formatting styles and originality are the final steps to understand the plagiarism issues and writing quality. So it also relates with the style and originality check, like verbatim. If somebody is forgetting uh, to put the quotation in proper manner, like they have forgotten use of double quotes, then there is no citation, then it will be considered as plagiarized information. Also, if they have forgotten to cite the borrowed information, then again this is a plagiarism problem. Also, it has been found sometimes the references are incomplete, or they are providing correct one complete reference, quotation is also there but it is mismatching, or some kind incomplete, sometime incomplete information or wrong reference, they are also kind of issues which are to be taken seriously. So why all this is related with the ethics? Because this is one of the basic areas of research where any kind of deception is not allowed, and it has been from the various groups like psychologists or ethical groups or philosophers that the research process should be avoiding any other kind of problems. So how this honesty in research is required? Because at different steps, like what are the intentions, what are different findings which have been achieved following certain research goals, or whenever any kind of research methods or procedures have been applied, even for data collection, all these steps require utmost honesty in research. While once the data is collected or some kind of writing work has initiated or it is at final stage, then acknowledgement of the support received from other researchers in any form, it should also be there. Interpretations which are there in the research writing, they should be based upon some instruments or some statistical techniques or some other validity measures. Also, whatever claims are being made in research, they should be justifiable, otherwise there will always be a room for doubt and the researcher may face certain problems. So, and how it is possible? But while any researcher, if they strive for excellence in research practices, they can be avoid any plagiarism issues or ethical problems. How it is possible? By using appropriate methods, and whatever kind of protocols are there, regulations are there, the researcher should be sticking to those protocols and regulations. By adhering to such regulations, definitely one is less likely to deviate from the agreed path of research. Also, whenever they are drawing interpretations or finalizing conclusions from the research, they should be very much cautious while they are not biased or impartial in conducting the research. And when they are sharing the results of research, they should also be careful while how it is in contrast, how it is being comparable, and how it is being original in its nature. So, how this is possible? While having transparency and open communication. So, so many platforms while any researcher submit their thesis or submit the paper, it may be at organizational level or at some commercial journal platform label, that they have to declare conflicts of interest. They have to report about what kind of data collection methods they have used, what kind of tools they have used. If it is some open access information, then they have to inform about this also. Also, what kind of reuse of data is possible for other purposes in future researches. They have to share the data also sometimes. And whenever they are applying any techniques or any processes for analysis and interpretation of data, they have to be careful. And Whenever this kind of data or research work, research results are being presented to other researchers and in general public, they should follow the guidelines, and by sharing means uh, the researcher is making the data more open, and the sharing of research really invites some observations as well. So while following the ethical principles in research, this particular concept of care and respect also come into picture, because research is mostly done for a degree. It may be at individual level like MPhil or PhD, but whenever there are certain research projects, there are multiple researchers whose aim or goals are similar in nature, and they are conducting the work for one particular common goal. So whosoever are research team members or participants, or maybe the subjects in research like participating human beings or animals or some other cultural objects, they all should be taken care and respected. So this all brings the integrity in research as one common goal for everyone, because intellectual honesty is related with proposing, performing, and definitely sharing or reporting the research as well. So the each step requires the accurate measures, steps, and contributions which are at different levels related to research proposals and reports as well. So there should be the concept of fairness in peer review as well. And when we talk about scientific researches, the concept of collegiality is also very much there, and how it is involving, because research communications and say sharing of resources is very much in vogue, because resources are less and everybody has to contribute in the shape of research in organizational levels. So when the research results are being shared or the research is being submitted, so at each level there is expectations of transparency, while declaring any conflicts of interest or potential conflicts of interest. So such kind of declarations really help in understanding the transparent nature of research and avoiding any future conflicts which may arise from fellow researchers or any organization or the funding agencies as well. While we were talking about care and respects, so it is also related with the inclusion of human subjects in the conduction of research and humane care of animals as well, because they are also living beings, and being a part of some experiment or research, it does not mean that they do not demand or expect the care in the research. And whatever kind of mutual responsibilities are there between the investigators and research teams, they all should be following those mutual responsibilities, and by adherence to those shared responsibilities, really it brings the integrity in research. So this convergence of mind, body, and machine, merging technology, artificial intelligence, ethics, integrity, and the law, this all relate to the transparent, integral, and original nature of the research. These are very much important components for the research integrity and ethics. So, what are certain dimensions of the research ethics? These are five. The first one is normative ethics. It is related with the meta-ethical questions we will discuss later on. Then compliance with regulations, statutes, and institutional policies. Then the rigor and reproducibility of science. Then finally, social values and workplace relationships. So these are five dimensions of research ethics which are very common and uh, requiring attention from all kinds of researchers. So, what are three questions which may be central to any research ethics programs? Because who should be championing the research ethics means who are the crusaders of research ethics, who are following or who should be formulating the guidelines for the research ethics in any organization. Also, if there are any problems, then how they should look like, which is related with how should what should interventions look like, and who should be participating in the intervention. So certain kind of committees can be framed for exercising the research ethics guidelines in any organizations. So let's discuss about normative ethics, which are very, uh, I should say, very intricate in nature, but very much visible whenever anyone conducts the research. Like, for example, we see is informed consent necessary when patients are randomized to different commonly accepted standards of care. So, this particular question shows what kind of ethical principle should be followed. It shows that the written or informed consent is really necessary. The second question is conducting harmful research on non human animals that appear highly intelligent, like chimpanzee or gorillas. Ethical when the outcome may benefit humans. We can see the research is being conducted on non human animals, but the results may be useful for the human society. So, is it possible to conduct that kind of research? So, it is one again ethical question here. Then are some research questions like about the connection between genetics and traits such as criminality. Are these kind of research questions forbidden if the consequences of the resulting knowledge could be socially harmful? So it is about the concept whether some research questions should be taken or not. So all these kind of questions indicate what kind of normative ethics are really considered. So, understanding this plagiarism, definitely practicing of taking someone else's work or ideas and showing them off as one's own, and how it is possible because these copying, infringement of copyright or piracy, theft, stealing, poaching, appropriation, or informal cribbing, all these activities which are found at Google as meaning of the plagiarism. These are the activities which usually students or some other scholars do knowingly or unknowingly. So these kind of activities whenever done in the writing work really invite attention from the supervisors and some other authorities. But how those supervisors and authorities can really understand whether there is some plagiarism or not? With the help of these plagiarism checkers, it can be understood whether there is plagiarism or not, or any unintended plagiarism if has been committed by the researcher, then it can be found out, and with the help of technique or tools, it can be understood what kind of plagiarism has been there, what is the level, how much similar is there. So there is one example, this particular software PaperRater, then another example DupliChecker, Turnitin, very powerful software. Most of the universities are using. Then this Authenticate, cross-check. This Grammarly is an example of improving writing, but it is not basically a plagiarism checker, but sometimes it also helps in understanding the similarity if found in the text. This is another example, PlagiaRater. Then PaperRater, this another example, Copyscape. So all these tools I have mentioned here like Plagium, DupliChecker, Authenticate. So many examples are there. These are here. So these plagiarism detection tools or software or programs, they really help in understanding if there is some similarity or plagiarism and up to what level it is found there. So this is the end of presentation related with the research ethics and plagiarism. Sir, thank you for opportunity and let me be here.